Hello friends! So today we're starting a little bit different. I have a lilac bush behind me, which is right in front of my house, and the winter was not kind to the lilac plants. I was looking all over the city and a lot of them are not blooming yet. They're starting to get buds, but by this time last year they were in full bloom, so the winter was definitely a little harsh for them since it was so long. I decided that the next plant in my plant blindness video is going to be lilacs, because lilacs are one of my absolute favorite flowers. I love the way they smell, I love the way they look, and they're actually really beneficial for you, which I didn't know until recently. I'm going to take you on that journey. Before we get into the medicinal, I wanted just to talk about the plant itself. So they're not like actual trees, but they're very large woody bushes. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that you have to prune them in order for them to bloom. So I've been kind of being a little secret laborer, going around town and just pruning and trimming some of the lilac bushes so that they come back healthier, because they're all very neglected and it makes me sad, and I want them to be in full bloom next year. So I did my part across the city. Just took a couple hours because I probably should have filmed it, but it was like, I'm a secret. But it doesn't matter. I'm gonna just show you some things and ways to prune. I'm gonna have to do this quickly because there's a storm rolling in, but I figured I would just show you. You see how these little buds are all over the place? These are what turn into the flowers later. But as you can see, there's a lot of this dead woody stuff. So on plants like this, you want to take all of the woody dead parts and trim that off. But we want to keep this piece because this has all of these leaves. So that means this part is still alive. And once we cut this part off, this one will have enough energy from this being cut off to then revisit this, and it becomes big and beautiful. And that's how you help your lilac plants. This is my pile of branches that I've cut off so far. We're just going to keep going. And then I'll show you the one down here, because once it starts getting to the base, a lot of times they'll die faster because they want to. Lilacs love sun, so the ones up top here are going to bloom first, but the ones at the bottom that get very little sun usually die off first. So there's a couple branches down here that I'm gonna have to prune off because they're basically all dead. Big old branch. But then all of the energy that it was using to try and make this do something is now going to be put back into the plant so it can grow better. Alright, so I showed you a little bit about pruning lilacs. I love being outside. when it's nice out and there's a storm gonna be coming in later tonight. It's not yet, so it's nice out and it's not too hot because I hate the heat, but oof, so good. But I've got all these lilacs here in my basket. I was living up my cottagecore dreams because I love lilacs, and there were some around town, so I'll probably get more as the season comes because usually it's mid to late May, but they're only around for a little time. I take them when I can get them. But I have some notes here because I looked through all of my books and none of them really had anything written about lilacs, and then I did some research myself, and a lot of it was from She's of the Woods on Instagram, and I realized why there's not a lot of information on using lilacs as medicinal plants. And it's because these plants are not water or alcohol soluble, they're only fat soluble, which means that the terpenes, the things that make them smell nice, if you put them in alcohol or you put them in water, they won't keep their scent. So it just doesn't really, is the shadows bad? I don't know. I hope not. Focus, Taylor. So because lilacs are not water or alcohol soluble and they're only fat soluble, if you try to make a tea or a tincture or anything with the lilac flowers, nothing's going to happen in the way of medicinal use because they don't bind correctly, the molecules in them. I was going to be a biology major, and then I realized it was really hard and complicated. People are much smarter than me. So I vaguely understood the science behind it, but the gist of it is you have to make things with fat, and you can't make them with alcohol or water. So, you want to hear something really cool? Have you ever noticed how there's not a lot of lilac scented things? Like, yeah, occasionally you can get a really good candle or something, but it's not in body washes, it's not in shampoos, it's not in conditioners, it's not in soap. It's because in order for the scent to be in anything, you have to have a fat content. So apparently, back in the olden days, if you wanted to have lilac scented perfume, you'd just take some animal fat. So say you were cooking bacon or beef or something and you have that fat layer at the end that's left over, you would take the animal fat and keep it in a container, and then you would pack the container on top of the fat with lilac flowers, and then you'd replace them every time they wilted. The lilac season's only about a couple weeks long, so you pack the animal fat with flowers, and then as they wilt, you change them out, you put new flowers on, and you do that until the end of the season. And then you'd have just like a solid perfume or like a pomade made out of animal fat, and it smells delightful, apparently. So if you're feeling real up to that, you can use that. Smearing animal fat doesn't seem like a good skincare routine, but to each their own. But I figured I would share you some of the cool things that I found out about lilacs, because they're more than just beautiful flowers that smell really nice. Let's get into it. All right, we're gonna see how the wind does. We're gonna try our best. So, just some fun facts. Lilacs are actually an amazing support for your entire system. I'm gonna hold this with two hands because I'm definitely not going to let it fly away. I worked really hard on this paper. When we're really worn down, when we're stressed, when we're tired, we're more prone to diseases and sickness. So using lilac as a tincture or a tea is a way to kind of protect your whole system to keep yourself up and running. Lilacs are anti-parasitic, which is super cool because there's not very many anti-parasitic plants that I know of. I'm sure as I go on this journey I'll find out more, but I just thought that was a cool thing, because who would have thought that lilacs are an anti-parasitic? The color doesn't matter. Apparently there's there's white, there's light and dark purple, and there's yellow, and there's blue. In this basket alone, I have just a couple varieties. So I have a very, very dark purple, and then I also have basically white, so you can see how they're different. This is a very, very light purple, almost white, but you see how the range is different, and then yeah, a little bit more pinky than the rest of them. So yeah, they come in a wide variety, which is pretty cool, and they're all good to use. Color doesn't matter. In some flowers, you have to be careful of certain colors because some of them are toxic and some of them aren't. Lilacs, you don't have to worry about it, so that's pretty cool. If you're making jellies or syrups, you'll want to take the stems and the green parts off because that's where all the bitterness is. I wonder if that has to do with the chlorophyll, but the flowers themselves are 90% water. So cell membranes of flowers are water and alcohol soluble, so there's no real reason to grind up your blooms if you're making like jellies or syrups because it doesn't matter. There are some flowers that you do have to grind up, but lilacs aren't one of them, so that's pretty cool. It's recommended that when you pick your lilacs, you want them to be fully opened. If they're open, the volatile oils that are in the center of the flower. So you've got the flower themselves, and then the inner part is where the volatile oils are, and they're connected to the stem. So it's all in here, in that little part underneath the petals. You want to have them when the volatile oils are open and just willing to do whatever you need them to do. So that's pretty cool. So like I mentioned, none of my books really talked about lilacs because it's not an easily used medicinal plant if you don't have fatty alcohols. But Scott Cunningham, he's got something written on it. So, lilacs. Syringa vulgaris. Folk names are common lilac. The gender is feminine. The planet is Venus. The element is water. The powers are exorcism and protection. And some magical uses are lilac drives away evil where it is planted or strewn. And indeed, in New England, lilacs were originally planted to keep evil from your property. The flowers, when fresh, can be placed in a haunted house to help clear it. So, this is where I got the idea. I was like, oh my god, I have to share this with everybody because this is cool. There's a way to make a lilac tincture even though it is not water or alcohol soluble. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. I don't have the products to do it at the moment, but I think I probably will before the season is over, so I'm going to try it. But for now, I'm going to just tell you how to do it. So, to make a tincture out of lilac flowers, you're going to cut all the flowers and the blooms off of the stems and just put them in the jar. It's okay if you get a little bit of stem here and there, but you try to avoid as much as possible. And then you're going to fill a jar. Don't push the blooms down too much, but just not packed, but filled to the top. And then you're going to get yourself some vegetable glycerin, which vegetable glycerin has a fat content that is pretty high, so that's the reason that you can use it to make a tincture. It's not recommended that you do it entirely made out of vegetable glycerin because your liver has a hard time filtering glycerin. So we're going to mix it with really high content vodka later, but we're going to start off with vegetable glycerin. Glycerin is a fatty alcohol, but you can't replace it with anything like MCT oil or fractionated coconut oil. It has to be glycerin, vegetable glycerin. So, your jar is full of blooms, right? You're going to pour into your jar 1 part glycerin to 3 parts 100 proof vodka. It's okay if it's not exact, but get it close as you can. So, 1 part glycerin, 3 parts alcohol, but 100 proof vodka is 50% water and 50% alcohol, so you're harnessing all of the water soluble properties, all of the alcohol soluble properties, and you're also harnessing the glycerin soluble properties all in the same thing, which is what we want. It's gonna smell nice, it's gonna do all of the medicinal properties, it's probably gonna taste good. It hits all the marks. Warning, do not use grain alcohol because it is too high of an alcohol content. Grain alcohols are usually 98% alcohol, so the alcohol actually attacks the plant on the cellular level and begins to degrade the plant matter within a matter of days. And if you're destroying the cell membranes on, each of the plants, it's probably going to start fermenting into a vinegar, which we're going to try to avoid. Don't use grain alcohol, use 100 proof vodka. The reason we don't want to destroy the plant membranes of the lilacs, and the reason we don't want to use grain alcohol is your tincture might be ready in 2 or 3 weeks, which is a lot faster than the tincture we're making, but it's not going to have most of the beneficial properties because you've destroyed the plant cells. There was a note, we're making plant medicine, not pharmaceuticals. And then just put your cap on your now filled jar, top off your jar completely with vodka. What people recommend is doing it in the sink, doing it all the way to the top, and then putting your top on and then just pushing it in so that the extra alcohol kind of goes out the side, because then it's completely full. if there's any air and any of your plant matter oxidizes, it can start to mold or just mildew or just start creating fungi that we don't want to let breed in our tincture, because that's not what we're going for. If you make your tincture entirely out of glycerin, it'll go rancid in about 6 to 8 months tops, because the vodka is what helps preserve it for a couple years. So if you want it just to be hard on your liver, not having all of the properties, and for it to go bad faster, you can make it entirely out of glycerin. But if you want it to be shelf stable and self-preserving and have all the medicinal properties that we want, you want to do it in the 1 to 3 part ratio. Dosage amounts, it looks like you're going to want, anywhere between 5 and 20 drops at a time of the vodka glycerin tincture. One of the things that I really liked about She Is of the Woods and her presentation of this topic and how you can use lilacs is that she explicitly states that every person is different. You have to figure out what works best for you. So the recommendation of 5 to 20 drops a couple times a day for this tincture is a guideline, but you have to use it and tailor it to your own needs. So keep that in mind. So circling back, your jar is filled with glycerin and vodka. It's got all the flowers in, you've closed it. You're now going to just very lightly shake it, get it all mixed up, and then you should put a label on it. And here are the things that they recommend you put on your label. What is it? It's a lilac tincture. What day did you make it on? When will it be ready? It's about 6 to 8 weeks after it's made. So set that date so you know when it is ready to start using. This is the best part. If you forget about it for a year or two, it's okay, as long as it is sealed tightly with no air getting into it. It'll still be fine. That's why we make it with vodka. That's the preservative. And as always, check with your doctor before starting any sort of new medicinal plant. Because yeah, there might not be allergic reactions very commonly to lilacs, but what if you have a medication that just won't do well with it? It's always good just to ask your doctor. It's good to be on the safe side. Is Thor gonna come join me? I think he's gonna come join me. Hello, buddy. Can I do my exit? My outro? Alright guys, I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you enjoyed just learning about lilacs and learning that they have medicinal uses, because they're not just flower that smells nice, and that's pretty cool. And it brings me a lot of joy learning about different plants, and this is probably my favorite series that I'm making or plan to make right now, just because everything is green and growing and the sun is out, and I'm happy. I love it. But until next time, skål, my friends.